I'm kind of curious about how you feel like porn and trafficking are interconnected because I'm not really aware of the link, or I don't know anybody who's really been a part of that. I don't think,
Mm.
but you guys talk about it a lot. Like, how do you feel that the two intersect?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to hear Brittany's answer on this as well. Like I mentioned before, we made a documentary actually on men who buy sex, and every man that we interviewed talked about their exposure to porn as children. And again, I know that not everyone who watches porn becomes a sex buyer, but a common denominator in every man who became a sex buyer was underage porn, exposure to porn, and this becoming an addiction in a long term way that then eventually led them to make the decision to go out and saying, the pixelated fantasy was not enough. I wanted to experience in real life what I was seeing in porn. I wanted my own porn star or sex slave experience with a real person. And I know I could pay someone and I'm buying their time, but I'm really buying access to rent their body. And so we see when a man is buying a woman in the sex industry, he has no idea if she's trafficked or not. He's not checking her paperwork. Are you over 18? Are you under 18? Do you have a pimp? Do you not have a pimp? So wherever demand exists, there are people who are there against their will, or an element of fraud, force, or coercion. So that the link with demand is one link. The fact that as far as porn sites being distributed, trafficking victims, the majority of trafficking victims that we've worked with in recent years said that filming their abuse was one part of the exploitation, because their pimps and traffickers knew, not only if do I sell this girl out to different individuals, but if I film it, I can upload that content. And whether that's on a porn site or in a black market or dark web situation, filming the abuse of trafficked individuals is becoming increasingly common. And so the fact that we were hearing from trafficked individuals and survivors that that videos of them were being uploaded onto sites like Pornhub. There's currently 194 victims suing Pornhub for illegal, non-consensual videos of them, and that's the tip of the iceberg. It takes a lot of courage to be a plaintiff in a lawsuit like that. And then even in the legal porn industry, or um, that there are mixed in with consensual videos, there's a lot of non-consensual videos. And so that's what it's hard to know, because you could be watching a video of a rape fantasy, but how do you actually know if it's rape or not rape? And even the experiences of a lot of women on set would be legally classified as trafficking. If there's an element of coercion in the consenting process, if she was under the influence of a trafficker or pimp who was uh, coercing her to get into porn. And I've done outreach at the legal brothels in Nevada, and there were trafficking victims who we've worked with later who said, my trafficker would send me as a punishment to those legal brothels. So just because it has the brand of it being legal, it doesn't always mean that there isn't an
Mhm.
element of force, fraud, or coercion. And those are the elements legally that define trafficking. So the consent process, even in porn, and I'd love to hear
Yeah.
your experience of that. To me, there's always further that should, like, further regulations that need to happen to ensure people are protected um, from being trafficked, even on sets.
Yeah, I mean, I've never met a man that was buying a woman or buying myself that hadn't watched porn. So, like, that's what led them to that point. And the last three or 3.5 years that I was in the business, I did have a pimp. So, like, I mean, I had to make my money, you know? I had to, it was $1,000 a day was my bare minimum. So I had to get that somehow,
And he
whether
would
that
take
was
all of your
trafficking.
money.
Yeah, he took
Yeah.
all my money. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of like that is terrible, of course, but it also just doesn't really seem all that related to the porn industry. Like, of course, there's gonna always be guys trying to insert themselves into situations where they think that they can make money, but I wouldn't say that that's exclusive to porn, or that there's. I mean, I've never even really heard of a porn chick having a pimp.
Yeah, they're not going to tell you. It's their
Right.
boyfriend or
Yeah.
their fiance. Like, I never in the porn industry was like, this is my pimp, everyone. Like, no, this is my fiance. We're engaged. We're going to get married. We're
I'm
so
just so used to
happy.
girls in the porn industry having more power than the guys, and if anything, they're the ones who are basically like, dangling the fucking carrot in front of him and just sort of making him do what they please, because the industry has kind of changed a lot in the sense that the girls are genuinely rich at this point, whereas when you hear something from, like, Alana Rhodes or Mia Khalifa, it's like they got into the industry right at the end of the studio porn era and before girls started making all this money off OnlyFans, so they might be genuinely upset about their experience experience or whatever, but they also probably have a little bit of resentment due to the fact that if they had started doing the same thing like 3 years later, they probably would have made millions off of their content.
From older friends that I had that did porn, I feel like the studio porn era was insanely exploitative.
Yeah, because
Like,
they were
the
making
types
so
of-
much more money and literally paying them the same
You'd
amount
get
that they
paid,
get
like-
right now.
Yeah, you'd get like $1,500 to do like
Yeah.
scenes where you're doing like triple. It's like, and you don't get royalties. You don't own any of the content, and you're just like fuck. And then now you look at girls on OnlyFans who will take pictures of like their belly button piercings and get paid like $10,000 for a request picture. What you say is, I think it is true, and I think that needs to be marked that the industry for porn has come a long way. Where and it sounds weird, and I know there are rad femmes and swerfs. I think they call them anti-sex worker.
Swerfs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or sex worker, anti-radical feminist, whatever.
I don't identify, but it sounds cool.
Sure. Where it feels like sometimes there's a bit of a mixture of like putting it all together. And I do feel like women in porn today, when they're doing it, are like so much more empowered. In terms of like the freedom they have to navigate, in terms of going on Twitter and blowing people up, in terms of controlling their own income streams or whatever, it has changed pretty significantly.
Yeah, but that kind of sounds like me in a strip club just trying to take control back too, you know?
Well, but they're getting control back.
Yeah, yeah, they
That's
are.
a good thing,
but-
though,
At
right?
the end of the day, you just work at the strip club. Like their OnlyFans account, like granted, like
Yeah.
OnlyFans could just yank their account out from under them, but it's pretty unlikely for the most part. They don't really answer to anybody, and
Yeah.
they're really
I
kind of
mean,
controlling their own
I'd
destiny.
like to hear their stories. Because when I was in the industry, I would always ask, like, "Hey, what's your story? Like, how'd you get into porn?" Like, and everybody had some sort of an upbringing that was dysfunctional, whether it was like the overly religious parents that beat them with the Bible over the head, and they're like, "Oh, you know, you're gonna go to hell, so might as well do whatever I want." Or you get the people that did have molestation in their lives, or, you know, verbally or physically abusive parents, or the dad never being there. Like, there was always a story.
Yeah,
Like, they always had a story.
This is like everybody, though, right?
Yeah,
like
but you
like
don't
you
just
said-
choose porn when you have like I don't know anybody that's ever chose porn that was like they really had a good upbringing, loving parents. Like, I personally don't know anybody.
Yeah, but how many people do we know?
You?
Yeah,
I
good
have
for
a
you.
pretty good upbringing, and I could say the same thing about my girl. She was like, you know, pretty
I
good
feel like a
family and
lot of
everything.
people you talk to had like mommy issues, daddy issues,
Yeah.
like dumb shit that happened, but not just in porn, like everywhere. I feel like you can find all these people all over the place. And I feel like we do a bit of a selection bias. So, for instance, you say, when I escorted for men, all of these men started with porn, right?
Yeah.
If I look at guys that use racial slurs online, I bet all of them watch porn. If I look at murderers, I bet all of them have watched porn. If I look at like current U.S. politicians, I bet all of them watch. Like
And
everybody
nearly-
watches porn.
yeah,
like
nearly every young
98%.
man
Yeah,
is gonna watch porn.
so I feel like
Yeah.
you can start with, if you want to say that porn is like a gateway to like bad behavior, it's probably a gateway to literally almost everything. But I don't think it's like causal, like they started porn and now they have to escort. It's more just like they were sexually interested and porn was there. But even absent the porn, I feel like a lot of these guys would have gotten into it anyway, like buying porn or doing other weird things, just because porn is so ubiquitous among society. Like, it's probably a lot of good people and bad people that watch porn, I would imagine.
Yo, we just hit 400,000 subscribers right here on the Clips channel. So if you want to help us out, click subscribe, get us to 500K. Yeah.